All right, so glad to be back for another episode of Borderline. How you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I'm sorry for everything what's going on with you guys. Just a little backstory here before we get into some cornhole and get to our guest today. Today's gonna be fun. We're actually going to talk. I mean,
Yeah.
the timing of today's guest could not be seriously any better. I mean, we're going to talk NFL and
Right.
cornhole, and this guy has experience in both and pretty damn good at both. To
Right.
be honest with you. So, all right. First things first, though. So, for those who don't know, this long, winding saga of you and Julie's place in Atlanta, this just will not end. So
Yeah.
so without boring everyone to death, we got to quickly recap. I mean, how this whole thing started and where the hell you guys are at now. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, we had a pipe burst. It's kind of up. All right, so it's a tri-level townhome condo, right? A pipe went bad, kind of connected to the upstairs shower. I guess it had been leaking for a while, and then you don't realize that until you see it, right? It starts to come through the floor. Apparently, it got really bad one night. Went through the floor. It came all the way down through the living room, and they found water had come through one of the living room walls all the way down to the basement or the third bottom floor, which is where the washer and dry are, yada, yada, yada. Okay. So that has to be fixed, obviously. So they got to come in and kind of take down drywall, take everything, find the leak, right?
Right.
Which is fine.
Which in and of itself is a big project.
Right. But that kind of stuff can get done and taken care of.
Yeah.
Well, because it was built in the 70s, like most things built in the 70s, they have to check for asbestos.
Yeah.
Obviously, they found some asbestos. So then they have to come in and kind of demo everything to find all the asbestos. So basically, once that happens, we've got, these 3 rooms, and it's not a giant place. You're talking like right around 2,000 square feet, but you take away these 3 rooms, it's a lot less. Anyway, they find the asbestos, they come through, so they have to kind of demolish the walls and ceilings in some of these rooms. And when they were doing it last week, they hit another pipe and it reflooded.
Wow. So where are you at now?
In an Airbnb in Atlanta.
Okay.
And so her, Julie's family are USAA people. Her dad was in the Navy, I believe, in the Navy. Anyway, so USAA is great. So insurance is going to cover pretty much everything. It's just we're going to be in a state of displacement for probably, 2 months. And then when we are at home, we'll be in a kind of half demolished home. And then, because it's Atlanta. No one can ever come in and fix something in like 4 or 5 days straight, right? You get them for 2-day bursts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you don't get them in 1 week or 2 weeks. It like kind of spreads out over time. And so it is what it is. It could be worse. We could live in Florida. So
yeah. Today's episode, by the way, is brought to you by USAA.
I mean, they're great. Every time she says, "Hey, this is what's happening," they pay for it.
Yeah.
But it's a mess.
Real quick, you brought it up. So on a serious note, thoughts out to all of our players who were down in that Southwest Florida area. Obviously, I know, and a lot of the top pros that we see all the time in that Tampa area. Fortunately, they were spared somewhat, but man, down there in Fort Myers, as we all know by now, we've all seen the pictures. It is it's hell on earth for those people.
Wow.
And this is one of those storms. And you remember Hugo here in South Carolina. I wasn't living here at the time, but obviously I hear the stories all the time.
Yeah.
When you are literally in the eye of the path of a storm like that, it just wipes out everything in its path. We lucked out here in Charleston. We just kind of got scraped. It was only a 1 when it came through here, and the flooding was significant. When you run into something like that down in Southwest Florida, like they did on Hugo, it's just gone. And it's we all forget about that, right? I mean, after a week or two, we're going to forget about it. Our lives go on. This is going to last months, if not years, to build back some of this infrastructure.
I mean, I remember in Hugo, I was in Charlotte. Actually, I was on a break from college during that semester, and Hugo was still a Category 2 when it made it to Charlotte. It was kind of freaky how far it came inland.
Yeah.
We lost 52 trees in our yard. It took us 3 days to cut out to get to the main road. And we were
52 trees. How the hell big was your house?
We had 4.5 acres. And they were all old oak trees, like big, 100, 150-year-old oak trees. So it was a mess, man. And then we were on, our own water. There were 3 houses kind of together that had our own power, our own well water, all this stuff. So, they weren't getting to us first, put it that way. So we were without power and water for a month probably. So it was a mess. I remember that. And then when I moved to Charleston was in 93, and Hugo had only been 4 years old, and you could go up the intercoastal and still see boats up in trees. It was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. The pictures for this past week were insane of what was happening down in Fort Myers. I mean, just to see, like you said, boats in trees, RVs. How about the RV park that had been completely wiped out except for one RV? And the question, the reporter was reporting on all this, and in the back of your mind while the reporter's talking, you're like, okay, so what happened to all the RVs? He finally got to that part of the story. They had been totally blown out of the RV park into the trees and into the bay of water that was basically adjacent to this RV park. I mean, that just shows you just the power. I don't think
people realize sometimes, because it's essentially a giant tornado.
Yeah.
But it doesn't just come through in 10 seconds. It's there for hours.
Yeah.
And it's brutal, man. It's weird. Like when you go through something like that, you have these people that, once they do it, they're not scared anymore if you're on the periphery of one. But I mean, when they're that big, like, on the verge of being a Category 5, I mean, that's bad, man. Because I think, like you saw in Charleston when it's a Category 1, that's pretty survivable, right? I mean, it's a lot of water.
Yeah.
But the wind's not going to be as
uncomfortable.
bad.
It's uncomfortable for days, but not for weeks or months or years.
Right. Yeah. And then you get a cat something that big. That's just what people. It's hard to get people to understand how bad that is until they actually live through it. I hope, fingers crossed that I'm never that person that has to live through one that size.
Right. Yep. All right. Well, again, so our thoughts with our cornhole community down there in Southwest Florida, and man, thinking about all you guys down there, awful time. Speaking of cornhole, real quick before we move on and get to our guest, I didn't get a chance to follow the Open. It's unbelievable to me that the season has started already, right? Like we just ended. I hopped into college football. I feel like there hasn't even been a break.
Sick call, by the way, man. Sick call. You had one of the plays of the weekend. You were on that call. That was awesome.
Yeah, one of the SportsCenter top 10. That was
in the Coastal Carolina game. There was a play made by the Coastal. Was he quarterback or running back that made the
running
play?
back, C.J. Beasley. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, he leaps over a player, which happens every now and then. But the player was standing as he cleared him. Makes SportsCenter top 10, and the guy on the call, Jeff McCarron. It was awesome.
And I sounded and I was screaming. It was terrible. It was so embarrassing to listen to it back because I felt like a screaming little like 13-year-old boy because I literally and you don't hear it, but as the clip goes on, about a minute later, I said something to the effect of, in the words of the great Jack Buck, I can't believe what I just saw.
Yeah.
And it was totally true. I mean, it was totally unexpected. I really didn't think they were going to run on that play anyway, because by running, it was towards the end of the game. They needed to score to win. And obviously when you run, if you get tackled middle of the field, the clock still runs. I think they maybe had a timeout left, but I can't remember. Yeah. So I was surprised that they ran anyway. And then they go to C.J. Beasley, who's like a 4-string running back, and he goes squirting up the field. And then Birdsong, the safety, is right there for Georgia Southern, and literally, like you said, he literally jumped over the 6-foot defensive back. And
because you see that play happen from time to time when guys are kind of down in a position and they kind of duck their heads, and they're half their normal height. This dude was standing up.
Yes,
he was bent down in a tackling position, but he raised up as he jumped. He still cleared him. It was crazy. That would have been fun to call. Way to go, man. Way to go, you.
So incredible play, ends up making SportsCenter top 10. That was a lot of fun. But anyway, so I had to jump right into football. So I really didn't even get a chance really to follow. But oh man, the spotlight just turned on. I feel like I've got like I feel like all of a sudden I'm being interrogated.
It looks like it got sunny in there.
What in the world? Hang on a second.
Technical difficulties. It's tough. It's tough out here. Now, see, that's better.
God, I don't like to see myself in dim light, let alone like in a spotlight.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the cornhole season started already this weekend. Like Bernie, like we just ended.
I know.
And now, boom, the first open in Rock Hill. I think I read this right. Did Jamie Graham sweep both?
He did.
Singles and doubles. What a way to start.
He, we were talking about, I was on with Trey Ryder, and we had kind of our bracket breakdown, if you will, talking about the Open. And I talked about Jamie Graham, and I thought last year at the beginning of the year, I thought that Matt Guy was going to be kind of on a mission, because even though he was still a top 5 player, he wasn't really kind of, it's Matt Guy and everybody else anymore. You know what I mean? He had been that way for so long, and I thought last year we were going to see him on a mission, and now he played well, finished top 5 again. So you can't say that he didn't play well when he finished top 5 in the world.
Right.
But Jamie, I think this year is going to be the same way. I think he has something to prove. I mean, look, once again, a top 5 player last year, his name is always popping up. You're always seeing him on broadcasts. But I think he has something to prove. I think he wants to be the number 1 player. I don't think he wants it to be Mark Richards, put it that way.
Yeah, and you know what else he wants? You know what else I think really is a chip on his shoulder? Not winning the MVP award. I think
oh, absolutely. And by the way, did you see what that did? You love numbers, right? You saw what that did for him last weekend. It tied him with Matt Guy.
Because he got 2s. Yes, he went from 16 to 18.
That's right. So now they are tied for most ACL wins of all time.
Oh, and they're doubles partners. Oh boy, this is gonna get good. So again, for those of you who watch the show, who not familiar with the season. So again, we just finished the Pro Championship, literally just last month. And end of August in California, and now the season has started already. And again, we've talked about this before, Bernie, but the best analogy I have is it's kind of like golf. You have your tour circuit, so you have your tour stops, and then you have your majors. So that's what started last week in Rock Hill, was basically the start of the tour schedule. So it was basically the first tour stop for the players. So definitely a big deal. Congratulations to Jamie winning singles. And how about Jamie Graham teaming with Chad Hunt, who I think is a rookie this year, right? So now another rookie.
It wasn't Chad Hunt. It was what was his name? I have to look it up.
I thought it was like Chad Hunt that he won the.
It's Cameron's. I'll have to look it up.
Did he win doubles with?
Yeah, I can't remember.
Okay. I saw Chad post about something, but I haven't had a chance.
Yeah, we'll have to look it up. But he's a non-pro.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
A non-pro, and once again, the Open Series continues to give us people we don't know. I mean, if you think about the Open Series last year, some of the names that we now take for granted that we know all the time: a Mark Richards, a Noah Almanza, names
that we didn't even know a year and a half ago.
Right. That we and here's another one that he's a North Carolina guy. He's well known in the region, right? But he's not an ACL pro. Teams up with Jamie Graham, wins a doubles. And it's not like, from what I heard, it's not like Jamie was just carrying him all the way through. I mean, the kid was dealing. So I'm sure we're going to hear this name in the future, put it that way.
Yeah, probably so. All right. We're already out of time. We got to get to our guests. We'll have to get to, we'll do a special Meet Jeff and Bernie.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the
fans like it, Jeff.
The fans like Jeff and Bernie. Yeah, it's super uncomfortable for us, but the fans seem to like Meet Jeff and Bernie. But way more important to get to our guest today. So let's do that.
Yes.
So our guest today, again, this could not be a more perfect time for who we're having on today. You're going to recognize his name right away for those of you who follow the sport, because he came splashing on the scene in the Super Bowl series last year. But he was an all-conference running back at the University of Virginia. Twice led the ACC in rushing, and finished his career at the time as the school's all-time leading rusher. He then went on to enjoy a 10-year NFL career as a running back for the Miami Dolphins, San Francisco 49ers, Cleveland Browns, and spent his last 3 years with the, at the time, Oakland Raiders. But if you ask him, maybe his most crowning achievement of his career was qualifying for the Super Bowl series, playing in the American Cornhole League. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll ask him. But a guy who's a heck of a football player and an outstanding cornhole player, actually is going to spend this year trying to qualify to become a pro this year. Please welcome to BoarderLine, Terry Kirby. What's up, Terry?
What's up, guys? What's up, baby? Let's go. Let's go.
glad to hook up with you, and what a great time. I mean, Bernie and I were just saying we took last week off because of everything going on, and they're like, all right, so who do you want to have on? And we were thinking, well, it's the NFL season. We're talking cornhole. Gotta have Terry on. So glad we could hook up with you.
I feel privileged. To be on here with you guys, man. I appreciate it. This is something new for me, and I love every minute of it.
Well, we'll wait and see if you still feel privileged after about 30 minutes from now.
Yeah, I got to let you know, my mom's husband, Mike Hogan's daughter, went to Virginia when you were there. So okay. he's going to be watching when this airs on Thursday night. He's pretty excited. He can't believe we stole you as a guest.
I hope I don't disappoint.
So Terry, before we get into talking some NFL, because I've got a lot of football questions for you, because there's been some headlines obviously that we need to go over, but let's talk a little cornhole first. For those who don't know, we talked about your playing career, and a lot of you know you as an NFL player, but why cornhole? Like, when did you start playing? Did you play cornhole back when you were playing in the NFL? What got you into the sport?
No, I never played. Growing up, I played horseshoes, but that was just, as a kid. And then, a couple years ago, it was at the bars and a couple tailgates I went to, and I just started playing a little bit, never anything serious. And then I want to say 5-6 years ago, I played in one tournament, and that was with David Stricker and Rosie. And I actually did pretty well. And then I never played again, just played at bars. And then last year, I played in one regional. And Dave was like, hey, you know what? You want to come and play for Super Bowl? I was like, well, what the hell is Super Bowl? It was like, oh, you're going to go out to Vegas and you're going to be on national TV and you got to win to play in the next one. I was like, okay, why not? Hell it. Why not?
Right.
And that was it. Now I'm hooked. I'm hooked.
That's what happens. That's what happens. We hear that all the time when people actually play. They just get addicted to it, or they go out and they play in a local blind draw or something like that. They get their asses beat, and they just don't want to lose again. They want to get better at it, and it's really funny how addicting the sport can be.
Yeah, it's so addicting. It's so addicting that I own a gym here in South Florida, and I actually brought a set of cornhole boards and bags in here. So when I'm not with a client, I actually pull them out in the middle of our turf and I start playing.
But sorry, Jeff, but you made a golf analogy kind of opening the show.
Yeah.
Cornhole's kind of that way. Like when you play golf and you're not very good, like on my level, but when you hit that one shot the exact way that you want it to, and it feels great in your hands, cornhole's kind of that way. When all of a sudden you can kind of get your flat bag going and you kind of get the throws that you want, all of a sudden you realize there's more to do. It's like, well, I can't just stop now. Now I know what I'm doing. Now I've got to get better.
The one good thing about golf is the difference between golf and cornhole is golf is much more technique wise, and you got to spend a lot more time,
right?
A whole lot more time, and you're outside of the driving range. It just takes too long to do. With cornhole, you can set up one board in your house if you have enough room. And it's just so much easier because I remember when COVID hit, I went out and started playing more golf because that was really the only thing you could do. You couldn't do anything else. You could just go out and play golf. So I brought a golf net. I brought a mat. I brought all that. I started hitting balls in my backyard. I did that for like 2 months because it was too damn hot. I'm like, forget this. I'm not doing that. Now I got cornhole boards set up everywhere, and I walk in the house and I just throw for 30 minutes. I walk, lay down for a minute. I come back out. I throw for 30 minutes. It's so much easier to practice than golf. That's what makes it so much better.
Amen.
Yeah, it's very mobile. I'm with you with golf, and I love playing golf. But the problem is it takes a half hour, 45 minutes for us to drive anywhere that's worth playing, and so you got to leave an hour early. It takes at least 4 hours to play, then another hour to drive back. And I'm sorry, but if you have a job and kids, that's impossible to do. It takes 6 hours of your day. That ain't happening.
Absolutely. And you know what the best thing is? With golf, most times it's a par four. I think of a cornhole. Cornhole, you got 4 shots, right?
Right.
3 out of 4 is pretty good. On the golf course, if you get that, you're playing well.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that, but that's what I mean. Like cornhole is a kind of sport that it's easy to be good at. It's very hard to be great at. Where golf, I think it's pretty easy to be like me. It's really hard to break 80, right? When you get around those people that are breaking 80, like they're real. Like they've got some secret figured out.
Absolutely. And they're consistent. And cornhole, you think you're consistent. And I mean, I sit here and I watch people and I'm watching everything. And it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I think I got it one day and the next day I don't have it. And you keep, like they always say, it's your grip, this and that. And you have to play around with it and you have to get comfortable. And not even the mental part of it, that part of it, is a whole nother aspect of it.
I was going to ask you about that because you played in the Super Hole qualifier and you played in the Super Hole event. For those who don't know, Super Hole started a few years ago. Basically, it was a big kind of pro-am celebrity series that started around the Super Hole. Bernie, I think it was like 2 years ago down when the Super Hole was in Miami, right? Our first event, I think, was in Fort Lauderdale.
It'll be the third year, yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the third year coming up, but then it turned into a Super Hole series. But it's a pro-am event where you get some athletes and some celebrities that pair up with our pros and then try and play for some money in the title. And so that's how Terry qualified to play in the Super Hole series. But the thing is about Terry, that those of you who don't know, Terry actually plays in a league down in Florida with Rosie Straker. Whose name you probably have heard of by now if you follow Cornhole at all. Rosie, one of the top female players in the world.
She's pretty good.
Yeah, we talk about all the time. So Terry and Rosie have played together many times and play in the same league. So Terry, you're actually pretty good. And it sounds like you and I were just texting just before you came on. So you're going to try and actually qualify on the circuit this year, try to qualify to become a pro next year? I'm
going to try, yes. I've been working on it, and I didn't know all the details of how to do it, and you just got to keep playing, and it's probably the hardest thing because there's so many good players out there. I mean, down here in South Florida, there's in the South Florida Cornhole League, there's so many good players, and to be able to compete, you got to practice. I mean, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And how many pros do they actually have? What, 250 or so?
Right.
I'm not exactly how many. 252
or 256.
You got to play to be one of those 256. I mean, you got to win and you got to play. And let me tell you, and these guys, you can be pro 1 year and not make it the next year. It's not like once you turn pro, you're pro forever.
Right.
Like in NFL, you're pro your whole career. No, not in the ACL. So once you get there, it's going to be harder to even stay there.
Yeah, for sure. As a matter of fact, I already made a mistake today on our show. I forget who the pros are. Jeff, you were right. It was Chad Hunt, and he is an ACL pro that played with Jamie Green. So, I mean, that's like there's 256 of them, but you're right. It's in another way, it's like golf. What is it, 125? You automatically get your card, you're back, and then the rest, everybody else, you're into a pool, you better qualify. Because it's hard.
It's hard.
But does it make you better? Does it make you better being down there around all those pros, though, playing against people that are on that level?
Absolutely. Last year I only played in, and I didn't have a regular partner in it. And I played in the event, in the advanced, in the competitive, because I wasn't good enough yet. So now I'm going to go ahead and step up and play advanced and do all the opens. But yeah, you have no choice. When we come together in our regionals, you got usually 6 or 7 pros that are there. So, I mean,
sure.
And not to mention Davis, who was a pro before, who's not being pro because, he's doing so much other stuff.
Yeah.
There's, 8 pros at every regional that we have. So it's not like you're playing against somebody that's not good. You're actually got to step your game up.
Hey, Terry, you talked about playing in the Opens. Were you up in Rock Hill, South Carolina? Did you play in the last Open?
I did not play. I got there only for the Super Hole. And let me tell you something, that was crazy because I was there with Rosie and Sam, and the last day they had to run the gauntlet to be able to come pro again. That right there, I can't even imagine that pressure on Sunday when you got to run the gauntlet to get your pro card. How many guys had to do that on Sunday? I think Mike Harvey had to do it also.
Yeah.
Some of the guys that were pros before, them guys, for them to have to run the gauntlet on Sunday and me as coming in the Open trying to get my card, and now I'm playing against 13 pros from last year that are trying to redeem their pro card. putting you up against the gauntlet.
I know it's brutal. It's like in golf trying to get your tour card. I mean, it is really difficult to try and get that. All right, so
and
speaking
I think
of
that's what I love the most. I think that's what I like the most. You know, athletes, once you play a sport for so long, you want that competitive stuff, and you gotta have it. And sometimes it makes me mad because I'm sitting there like, man, I know I'm a better athlete than most of these guys. Why in the hell can't I get in the hole? What the hell is the damn problem?
Right.
Let's have a tackling contest. It's like, shit, can't I do this?
Yeah. Come on, Alex. Yeah, Alex Hicks, you stand right there and see if you can take my head.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, humans, let me see if you can tackle me.
Yeah.
Hey, let me see if you
humans is not going to stop you. Matter of fact, Alex Hicks might win that against Jimmy Humans. But no, I mean, you bring up a good point though, Terry, because, and you touched on it when we first kind of came on, is the mental side of it. And I think that you've kind of run into that by playing in Superhole when we got crowds and we got TV. I mean, you played obviously some big time games, whether it was in college for Virginia in the ACC or 10 years in the NFL. You obviously had some very high pressure moments, but there is something about Cornhole, whether it's the lights, whether it's the camera in your face, whether it's just you instead of a team, there's something pretty nerve-wracking about it, obviously, up there on stage for everybody.
Oh, it's nerve-wracking even when you're not on stage there. You know, when I sat there and I played in some of the sit and goes, every shot is important. You know, in football, you got 10 other guys. For me as a running back, if my offensive line does their job, my job is easy. You know, when you're playing cornhole, you got that one shot, and that one shot is important. The next shot is important. The third shot is important. And it comes down to it. And there's so many different shots. That's what's amazing to me. You try to master, all right, like Matt Guy says, put it in the damn hole. You know what? If you put it in the hole, they can't beat me. Put it in the hole, you can't beat me. And then you get these guys doing these roll shots. And I'm like, shit, I need to put it in the hole first. Let me practice on this. Let me practice on this.
Yes.
And it's such a different game. And I remember at Superhole in Rock Hill, it's funny because I call Matt Guy every time I see him. I call him the Tom Brady of cornhole. That's what I call Matt Guy because he's been in it for so long. And it's funny. Humans was like, there he goes. That old shit is done. He's the old goat. There's a lot of young goats around here now. And it's funny because they were going back and forth about it. And it's true. These young guys with the new roll shots and all that stuff, it's absolutely changing the game.
It's crazy, right? I mean, but you bring up such a good point, and Jeff, you and I have talked about this in the past, that I think for younger players, they get so enamored and caught up in the roll bags and some of the other shots. Well, wait a minute, you get really good at sliding in the hole and first. When you can't miss doing that, then go to a different shot. I mean, that's the best way to learn. But people get so caught up in, I want to throw a roll bag. I want to throw a roll bag, that you see their consistency level is just not there. And I think that's what holds back a certain number of people from being pro and holds a certain number of pros back from becoming elite players because they just won't get consistent enough with one shot.
I agree. And that's all I'm concentrating on. If I can throw it in the hole, that's all I want to do. Consistently down the middle. I look at, like Rosie, for example, you have Cheyenne Renner. You know what? They're just putting it in the hole. That's, to me, that's the name of the game. If you can do that, we match, then you know what? Best man wins at the end, right?
You know who loves to hear that? Jeff McCarriger loves to hear that.
Really?
Jeff hates the dirty style of game where they throw a block and they roll. He hates it.
This is an ongoing debate that I'm probably not going to win, but I'm not going to let go of. But again, going back to your point, Bernie, of get good and be the master, be excellent, be the best at something first, and then do all that other stuff. I still feel like, Terry, and this could change, but to win at a high level consistently, I don't see a dirty player being able to do that. Can they win an Open? Sure. Can they win a National? Yes. But to be a consistent year after year perennial champion at this level, I just don't see it happening because it's hard to be consistent with that game. And I think that's why you see a Matt Guy who has 18 career titles. And Jamie Graham can play dirty. But I still think he's one. I still think he's one of the best. Put the bag in, push the bag in. His push bags to me are elite. He is such a strong thrower, and that's something that you can always win with. And so someone like Tony Smith and someone like Eric Davis, Terry, I love watching these guys play. I really do, and I've said that on the air before. I love watching Tony Smith play because he reminds me of being like a Major League Baseball pitcher. He's got 5 or 6 different pitches, right? And the way that he uses them all to paint the strike zone, paint the corners and all this kind of stuff. It's amazing what he does. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure if a player like that can win, at a high level consistently. So that's what this.
I agree. I mean, I guess it's going to be debatable, huh?
I guess it's so funny because it's so funny when
let's see what happens in another 6 years. If those guys continue to win, we'll see.
Yeah.
It's so funny because when we get the pros on, the pros love it. The pros love the dirty style of game.
Yeah, absolutely.
They would prefer to see it, and they would prefer to see it. But then again, Mark Richards, #1 player in the world, doesn't play dirty.
Right. And you know what? The thing is, it's one of those things where it's exciting. Instead of, I guess they're saying it's kind of boring, just throwing the hole. I think the whole dirty style is making it exciting. And I think that's. I'm so used to people yelling around me when I'm throwing. I don't care if you yell around me. It's so funny. I was out at McKenzie's and, my cousin was there and he was yelling, behind me. And I'm used to that. And people around are like, whoa, what's going on here? People aren't used to having noise around. I'm like, get excited. It is what it is, man. It's a game. It's competitive. You know what? Let's have fun playing it because that's what sports is all about. Can you imagine being in a football field and actually hearing people behind you and what they're saying?
No.
You could care less.
Yeah.
Because you can't even imagine what they're saying to you in the stands.
That is funny that you say that, Terry, because about a month ago, maybe it's a month and a half ago now, I'm sure you remember the game where Jordan Power and Jay Rubin were down 20-2, right?
Absolutely.
And they come all the way back and they beat Philip Lopez and Mark Richards and they beat them. Yeah. Well, there was some chatter going on. During that match. And to your point, Terry, some people liked it. Some people didn't like that at all. But Bernie and I said, hey, go to a college basketball game, go to an NBA game, go to an NFL game. You're going to hear a lot worse.
A lot worse. A lot worse. You know what I'm waiting on? I'm waiting on somebody to run through a live broadcast. Take their shirt off.
Oh, yeah, right? Now that you say that, it's going to happen.
Like last night in the game, you see the guy run out. When is that going to happen?
It's going to be me. I'm going to take my shirt off with the smoke bomb and run through the next match.
All I can say is, if it happens, Terry, I hope that you're there so you can take him out like the guy did last night for the Rams.
Exactly.
Well, hey, let's switch a little bit because I know we're going to run out of time. We always do. Again, back to the mental game. And I guess I really kind of wanted to ask you, I mean, as someone who played in the NFL for 10 years, and we've been talking to the players a lot about this lately, is the self-talk that they have in your head and how you get past that. How do you conquer that? Like how much, and this may sound like a really stupid question, but how much is the game of cornhole mental versus physical versus playing in the NFL? Is the NFL more physical, less mental? Like is cornhole even more of a mental challenge than the NFL was for you because it's such a physical sport?
Yeah, it is. That's what I went to school for. I went to UVA and my major was sports psychology. So it's one of those things that, these guys, just like me playing football, you practice all week just to play in the game. And when you get in the game, there is no thinking. That's what practice is for before. As long you've done every single shot, how many times? Right. You've done it thousands and thousands of times. So the key thing is when you get into that game and you have a block shot in front of you and you got through it, how many times have you already done that shot? It's just now you get up there and you throw it. And that's the hardest thing to do because in your brain is telling you, to think about it instead of just doing it. Because just like Tiger Woods, how many golf balls do you think that guy had hit in his lifetime?
Right.
There's not a shot. Like when you see him when he was in his prime and he was hitting balls, through little teeny holes and, through the trees and all that stuff. He's done that shot over and over. Do you ever think he sat there and thought about it when he was hitting that? not at all. He was like, oh, I got it. And that's one of the hardest things to do, is to free your mind up and just play the game, because you've already practiced all week. You know, these guys are throwing, you know, bags for 2-3 hours a day. And that's repetition. And you're always going to have that in your head. You know, I remember doing an exercise. If you ask, you ask any golfer, if you set up a golf ball and you set one like 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet, and you ask them, you know, what in your mind, what's the percentage of you going to make that first one that's 1 foot? You're going to say probably 100%. 100%. As you get further away, in your brain, you're telling yourself, it's a 50% chance I may make this. Mm-hmm. Where in your brain, it should be, you know what, 100% chance that I'm going to make that. So you're already putting that in your brain that you only giving yourself 50% of making this shot. And I think that's the training part of, you know, even with cornhole or any sport that you've done, you practice to play the game, man. The game is supposed to be the best part about any sport that you play. When you get up there, you're supposed to just let it go and free your mind. And it's hard to do.
It is. And like, you bring up a great point, and I'm going to ask you something. You're going to get really mad at me. By the way, we see Terry all the time at tournaments, and he's probably going to beat me up for this next question.
Now, Bernie, we do want to have Terry back again as a guest.
But sports psychology is so interesting to me. And if you look at a loss that you had at the University of Virginia in 1990, and how difficult it was for you guys you were better than the teams you ended up losing to after that game. And it's the Georgia Tech game in 1990. You guys were number one.
Absolutely.
Really? If y'all win that game, you probably go on and play for a national title.
Absolutely.
But you didn't, and it seemed to affect you for 2 or 3 more games. In cornhole, I see our pros. I mean, we're talking the elite that will miss a bag that they know they should make, and then for another 3 or 4 rounds, they're still thinking about that bag they missed 3 rounds ago. And 100%. I'm wondering, like, how do you get out of that? Like, what's the secret to getting out of that, I guess is my question.
What you have to be able to do is you have to take a breath and have a great short-term memory. And it's, you know, I've been in a game where I fumbled in a crucial point, and I'm sitting there like, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that. And at that point, it has to be gone. And that's the hardest thing to do as any athlete or any person, to be able to free your mind up and let it go. And you have to do, you know, it's something that you have to practice at, and you have to be able to have that one place that you can go to in your brain that says, okay, it's over with. Think about something else. And it's hard. It's one of the hardest things to do. You know, even think about that big game, that comeback. Those guys got 20 points. Yeah. You know, 20 points.
That's crazy.
20 points. You know what they call it? The 20. 20. You need 1 point. You know, and think about it. In that game, how many bags at the end that went off the board? I couldn't believe it.
I know.
You could not believe it. You need 1 point, and it's not like you didn't have a chance to do it. You did. But, you know, that's the point of taking a breath, you know, and finding that place that you can go to in your brain.
Yeah, there were times in that match I actually wanted to just like call timeout and go get Philip Lopez a hug and be like, hey, man, deep breath. You're fine. You know, relax. Yeah. You could see it getting to him. Both of them, he and Mark, you could see it starting to pile on him. It was crazy.
And you know what's interesting about that? They only use the timeouts when they got to go look at the bag. They have to remember, hey, you don't need a timeout just to look at the bag. If you need to take a breath, take a timeout.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to use.
Yeah.
Well, you only get 2, and you get 2 in doubles, which I think the players sometimes forget that, you know, use 1 for looking at bags. But you're right. If you're in a bad run, take a timeout.
Take a timeout, but use the time. That's
maybe Terry, maybe to your point, and this is what I love about our sport is that it's kind of like NASCAR. They are always willing to make changes and tweaks to the rules, and maybe this is something that we add, Bernie, just like I'm doing a football game last weekend, right? There are media timeouts. Absolutely. And there are team timeouts. Mm-hmm. So maybe we can tweak the rules to where you get 2, team timeouts. Yeah. But then there's also, another timeout that's just a miscellaneous timeout. So Terry, like you're saying, these players can calm down a run. Somebody's going on 11-0 run. You're like, wait a second, we literally need a timeout.
I mean, the rules for the timeouts only come because of television. because we're not an untimable game. We have to be done inside that time frame, or the networks won't use us anymore.
Right.
Quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, that's very unfortunate as far as
it is.
That's what happened with me at Super Bowl. Actually, I had no idea that we were doing rounds.
Oh, the rounders, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I mean the round, like 10 rounds.
I didn't know we had 10 rounds. I had no idea, and I'm sitting there, and they go, "Oh, this is round 8 out of 10." I go, "What?" I was like,
"I've got this big comeback planned. What did y'all do?"
I was like, "Wait a minute."
Well, that's what's great about the rounds too, Terry, is because the 10-round limited games or 12-round limited games, totally different dynamic than first one to 21. Because if that game between Mark and Phillip and Jay and Jordan, if that was limited to 10 rounds, we would have never seen that. So that's why people ask me all the time, what do you like better? I like them both for different reasons, but that first to 21 leaves you with these huge epic come from behind wins sometimes.
Yeah.
So,
and like you said, the mental game of any individual sport is hard. It's very hard because you have to be able to find your place, and you have to be in that zone. You watch those guys, like Alex Rawls and those guys, and the first year that I went out there, when I went to Vegas and I saw all these guys, I'm sitting there like, wow, man, how in the hell are they doing this over and over and over and over again? And you're sitting there like, and it's nothing spectacular. They're just throwing bags. I'm like, why in the hell can't I do that? What is the problem?
Yeah, what are they doing? It's so crazy.
What are they doing? It's like,
so simple.
My arm is bigger than theirs. Ryan, I got bigger arms than Ryan Smith. I can throw it. And I'm sitting there like, shit, why can't I? And it's, for me, it's absolutely mental. And I know it is. And I'm working on that because I've never had to do anything like this. You know what I mean? And I think it's something that I need to, and that's it. I know I have to work on the mental part of it. And that's what's going to put me over the edge.
Hey, Bernie, I don't know about you, but for me, it is so funny. I mean, ever since this series started, Terry, I mean, to hear people like you, to hear people like Dawn Staley, to hear people like Jay Cutler talk about how cornhole is the toughest thing they've ever had to do in their lives. It's hilarious for me to hear.
Well, because it's a game. There is no real physicality in the game, right? I mean, look, the way that you can stand around for an entire weekend and not have your knees hurt, I think there's a physical nature in that. But that's for us older folks. The kids could do that forever. So it's all mental. In any game that's all mental, there's certain people that have it. Like I would love, I was actually throwing with Trey, and he's like, "What's wrong with that bag? You act like you can't throw it." It's like, yeah, that's 2 good ones. The next, here come the next 6.
The next 6 are off the board. Yeah, so true.
It's true. It's like, how do you throw a bag off the board? It just.
I can show you a lot of ways.
I get so frustrated when I do that. I'm sitting like, how in the hell did I do that? Or you throw a short bag, you're like, really?
Yeah.
It's like,
yes.
I can't.
Short bag is the worst. Short bag is the worst.
And I did it on national TV.
Hey, Terry, somehow we have spent the last 30 minutes talking about cornhole. Like we wanted to talk about the NFL.
No way.
Bernie and I, this show was not supposed to be entirely about cornhole, but somehow we just killed 45 minutes just talking about cornhole. All right. Hey, in a couple minutes left, give us your thoughts on the NFL. I actually had a serious question for you because you're down in Florida, and I'm sure you're close to the situation about Tua. And the whole concussion thing. And I actually have analysts that I've done college football games with in the past. They suffer from some of these issues with CTE. It's real, and so to see that is scary. And as a former player, I kind of want to get your thoughts on that and what the word is down there and on possible return for him.
Listen, one thing about the game of football, and you've talked to other guys, it's a rough sport. It is a very rough sport. And, those concussions and, I've had mine, and it's a different time now, with the different protocols. And I don't know how you're ever going to fix it. The one thing that's going to end up happening, back when I played, we call it get our bell rung. When you got hit, you came to the sideline, you went to the coach and said, "Hey, give me a smelling salt." And you snapped out of it. Now with the protocol and stuff, I don't know if you're ever going to be able to go back into the game. And that right there in itself is going to change the dynamics of your roster. Because now, if you like Tua gets hurt, goes on concussion protocol, now you got Teddy Bridgewater comes in, something happens to him. Now you're going to end up having to have a running back or somebody else come in at quarterback, like Shaquan. And with the Giants, had to take snaps during the week. You know what I mean? So it's going to, especially if the protocol becomes what I think it's going to end up happening. I think they're going to have a stricter protocol and guys aren't going to be able to go back into the game. So,
but I think, as much as we want to see these players, Terry, I think it has to be done, right? I mean, to protect them.
Yeah.
But it's still got to be football, though. I mean,
that's the thing.
It's still got to be football.
And the Tua hit, the guy, it wasn't a bad hit. It was not a bad hit. I mean, it was a great hit. And I think it was just one of those things that I don't know what happened the game before. I'm not even gonna answer on that because I have no idea. Because if he would have never got hurt Thursday night, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Right, and that comes from Tua being so small. I mean, people forget that. If he's 6'4", 250, he's not thrown to the ground like that.
Absolutely.
Being his size allowed that hit to be a lot worse, and that's why you don't have people like me playing professional football.
I think guys just, as a player, I worked out extremely hard. It is what it is. I mean, we're in a car accident every hit. Think about that. As a running back playing 10 years, I've been hit a whole lot of times, and and there's nothing you can do about that. You're playing the game of football. You're going to get hit. So I think you have to train your body, your neck, and everything else to be able to take that contact. And, I not only do I put it on the players, I put it on, coaching staffs, weightlifting coaches, everybody. There's a certain thing that you have to do to get yourself prepared to play this violent game. And if you do that, certain injuries, there's nothing you can do about, but you can also help yourself. And I think that's one of the biggest things you got to do is help yourself.
Terry, I see it all the time watching these games. I mean, and broadcasting these games. I cannot believe that on every play you get 3 or 4 defensive linemen, 5 offensive linemen, and a running back. That after a running play, somehow most of the time,
everybody
get up and do it again. I don't know how that happens.
The next play.
I don't know how it's possible.
So, I look at it like this, and everyone always says these guys are bigger, stronger, faster than when I played in the 90s. And I go, you guys have no idea. I go, think about now as a receiver, coming across, you really can't get hit anymore.
Right.
Steve Atwater, Ronnie Lott, Muddy Waters, Lewis Oliver. I can go down the list of these safeties that when you came across the middle,
it's lights out.
It's lights out.
I was scared. I was scared of Ronnie Lott watching on TV.
Absolutely. What's so funny is I have this picture of Ronnie when I played here in Miami, and the guy, a photographer, was on the sideline, and he took the perfect picture of me on the sideline hitting Ronnie Lott, and his helmet flies off, and his helmet's in the picture, and then his face is there, and my shoulder's right there. So when I got traded to San Francisco, I took it out there. I said, Ronnie, will you sign this for me? He goes, get that shit out of my face.
That is awesome.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, hey, unfortunately, Terry, we are out of time, man. We would love to have you back again.
Absolutely.
And thanks for everything you do for the sport. Love to have you being a part of all the Super Bowl series, and look forward to seeing you on the circuit this season.
Absolutely. I'll be there.
Take care. All right, Terry. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
All right, Terry Kirby. Unfortunately, we got to head out of here.
Hey, man, sorry about the Chad Hunt thing. I don't know why I had that wrong, but you were correct. Sorry, Chad, if you're watching. Welcome to the world.
Here's the problem with you is that even when you're wrong, you say things like you're right, and they make everyone in the room doubt themselves.
Right.
I gotta stop fucking doing that because.
But I always come. But I always
knew
come
I was
back.
right.
But I always come back and say if I'm wrong. By the way, I will do that. But yeah, I'm a born arguer.
All right, brother. We're way over time. We got to go. But hey, thanks to Terry. Appreciate you bringing it. Good luck with the house, man. Seriously.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
All right. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks, everybody.
See ya.